It's time for KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice, and we're telling the stories of Kansas City nonprofits and the people behind them. KC Cares is the intersection of the nonprofit and profit communities, making Kansas City a better place to live, work, and play. This KC Cares segment is brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation, www.kauffman.org. I'm Ruth Baum-Biggis. Strong leadership is something every nonprofit can benefit from. No one knows that more than today's guest, Earl Phalen. KC Cares first connected with him as the inspiring leader of the KC Scholars Program, working to move youth forward through education. He also leads the Phalen Leadership Academies, an effort to lift every child to excellence. Earl's unique personal story and all his experiences have played a pivotal role in his being one of the top educational leaders in the country, and why we welcome him back to KC Cares for this Ask the Expert episode to talk about leadership and what it means to be a leader. Earl has authored a new book, From Vision to Impact, The Secrets to Building a Successful Social Enterprise. And we're delighted to chat with him about that too. So welcome back. We're so glad to have you. I'm going to do a share and tell so all of our viewers can see. Here's the beautiful book. And you want to be sure to grab it. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. Great to be here. Great to be with you.
Well, I want to give a little context before we dive into leadership and the book particularly, because I think it's important for why you decided to write it and share this. So maybe you can give us the McNugget of your background, because it's fascinating and it's brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, born of a teen mom, placed into Massachusetts foster care system at birth. At that time, there was a front page article in the Boston Globe that said that 70% of Black boys in Massachusetts foster care would end up in the prison system by the time that they were 21. I was adopted as the youngest of 8 into an Irish Catholic family in a small town outside of Boston called Norwood. Went to public school throughout, Yale University, Harvard Law School, and have been able to devote my entire professional career to giving children and adults the opportunities that I was given that allowed me to thrive. And so that's been the journey, and it's just a pleasure to be able to try to help others as I was given that opportunity to be my best self as well.
Well, with your resume, and I only shared a teeny bit of it in the introduction, I don't know how you find time to sleep or write a book. I mean, you're busy and all over the place. Let's dive into the book. Why did you decide to write a book?
Yeah, so I wrote my first book, actually. You mentioned the Kauffman Foundation. My first book is called Giving My All, which is an autobiography. And when I started to learn about Kauffman, I obviously wanted to learn about his vision and how he changed the world, and his prescription for success really showed me his personal journey as an entrepreneur, as a philanthropist, as a leader. And so I wrote the first book with that notion of, hey, 100 years from now, if anybody wants to know what Phalen Leadership Academies or the George and Veronica Phalen, my other nonprofit that runs schools, what we stand for, that they'll be able a chance to read it the same way I read Prescription for Success. Once I started doing that, I realized my journey as a social entrepreneur, which started really in the early 90s up until today, I've just been blessed to have so many mentors, so much good advice, so much encouragement, so many setbacks and failures that I thought, because social entrepreneurs are so important to the fabric of our economic survival and entrepreneurs' economic and social impact, that if I could write down all the lessons I've learned, or not all of them, but many of the lessons that I've learned, and share that and pass that to the previous generation, as so many people mentored me. They mentored me by sitting down, having lunch with me, having breakfast with me, talking to me, coaching me, and advising me. But just thought that, wow, now that I've already written a book, I think I could take all my experience over 30 years with some relative success, and then share that with others to make them greater at whatever social venture they want to bring to life.
Let's define social entrepreneurship so everybody understands that term.
Sure. While an entrepreneur starts a business that could be a dry cleaning shop, could be a hamburger stand, could be a tech company. A Social entrepreneur has really a double bottom line. Yes, they have to be financially viable, but they're trying to use their nonprofit organization most of the time to make the world a better place. So, a homeless shelter, for instance, would be an example. A nonprofit school that's helping, or a preschool program that's helping children get off to a great start. And then obviously, KC Scholars and Great Jobs KC, which provide college scholarships and training to adults. Those are social enterprises. But I think the term emerged because it said, yes, there's a difference between a for-profit and a nonprofit, which Great Jobs KC is a nonprofit. But the business principles that make both successful have a lot of commonality in them, and you better bring that same rigor to a social issue as you'd bring to another issue if you want to have the lasting impact that we all hope we have within communities.
Well, it's interesting to bring in that framework of business. Yes. I think, Kansas City is robust with nonprofits, many of whom are 1, 2, 3 person founder because of maybe a tragedy or something that has moved them. And we hear so often along the way in those stories is, oh, I didn't realize that. So in discussing the issue, why is it so important to kind of bring a business mindset to a nonprofit social entrepreneur entity?
Yeah, I think like a lot of us, who got started in this social sector, our passion was, you said, our passion, right? I was passionate about mentoring, and I was passionate about educating young children and helping them be their best selves. But when I started my first nonprofit, I didn't know anything about finance, operations, right? I didn't know anything about evaluation and research and evaluation. I didn't know that, gosh, I need to look at KPIs, right? Key performance indicators on a regular basis to see if we're tracking towards. I didn't know anything about fundraising or building a revenue model. So I had all the passion and the love to serve children, but we were only able to serve 20 children because I couldn't bring the business acumen to combine with my passion to then allow us, which ultimately we went from 20 scholars in the beginning, and then we ultimately were serving 15,000 children a year, because over time, through mentorship, through coaching, through my advisors and through my mentors, and by building a great team, we were able to grow the organization. And why does that matter? Because while serving 20 children is incredible and so important, serving 15,000 children incredibly well and changing 15,000 children's futures is even more impactful. So for those of us who want to kind of grow our work and keep the level of excellence that we all have, and whether it's whatever type of nonprofit we lead, you need to have both the passion and the business acumen.
What was the turning point for you?
Frustration. Frustration that we could only serve 20 children, and I couldn't figure out a revenue model to impact the lives of more children. And gosh, we were getting school partners, but we were losing them because we didn't know about the importance of customer service. I mean, we had the general gist, but there's science around all of these things, right? We didn't know, I was so proud the first time, my first nonprofit, the first year, we only had $12,500. I made $5,000, my co-founder made $5,000, and we had $2,500 for pizzas and program materials. It was an after-school program in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and then in Roxbury, Massachusetts. And I was so happy when we got a lot of grant money the second year. Went from $12,000 to $87,000, went to $212,000. And it was the worst. When we were $212,000, was the worst year I've ever had as a leader. So I hired people, but I didn't know how to hire. So I met somebody, we had a good conversation. They seemed like they had a good heart. I was like, come on, join the team, right? Job descriptions, those weren't really structured. Meeting structure, that wasn't really that clear. We were just kind of a team just working together, and we were going to find a way to make it happen. It was literally the worst year of my leadership. And so that frustration over, wait a second, it's not just about the resources. It's also about how do you manage people? It's also about how do you create operating mechanisms that help you see on an ongoing basis if you're going towards your goal. Because I've always been blessed to have teams that were entrepreneurial and that loved our kids and loved our scholars,
Mhm.
but translating that love into really good programming. And we went, which was incredible. We went from that $200,000. We went next year to a million, 2 million. Then we went to 7 million, 14 million, and 27 million annual revenue. And I only say that to say, one might say, oh, well, that's just, no, we went from 20 kids to 15,000 scholars, and our program got better because we learned the business practices that you need to have to run an effective nonprofit.
You're hired. We're
Thanks.
hiring you right now.
That's exactly right. Not a really good process looking back on it.
No, but you grew and you took those steps. So, all right, let's dive into the book. Vision to Impact.
Yes.
Your secrets. Give us an overview of the book and the kind of advice that people are going to find in it.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty easy read. Tried to keep it short. 7 chapters, so 7 principles that, looking back, have helped me and my teams be successful in making an impact. Um, Storytelling is part of it, but then kind of 4 or 5 action items. There are lessons from each chapter that you might learn that will help you be stronger. So it's a pretty easy read. And it's pretty, it matches stories, but also here's 4 or 5 things you want to think about that may make your nonprofit even more impactful.
Can you walk us through just briefly each of the chapters?
Yeah, for sure. So at the top is your why, right? You have to know your why. You have to know, why is it that you do this incredibly hard work? Why is it that you fight through all the things you go through? Another chapter focuses on building extraordinary teams. So how do you attract teams? The third chapter is money matters. The more money you have, again, not that you're focused on self, but the more money you have, the more people you're able to serve. At Great Jobs KC, we right now have 1,000 adults per month that are coming through our workforce development training program. So if you think about that at our cost of about 6,000, that's $72 million that we'd need to serve. So money matters because people are finding hope. They're finding that they can come through our workforce development training program and all of a sudden go from 3 jobs making 31,000 with no benefits to now 85,000 a year plus benefits for themselves and their children. So money matters because it allows you to pursue your mission. I talk a little bit as well about how do you organize your teams and the importance of goal setting,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that ability to, on a daily basis, or at least on an every other day basis, know, are you headed towards the goals that you want to achieve at the end of the year? That has really empowered my organizations tremendously by clear goal setting and then looking at key performance indicators on a daily basis to see, are we making progress? If not, how do we adapt and change? And then the final chapter is really focused on faith and anger. And how do you use faith and anger as a social entrepreneur? Because a lot of times things come at you very fast, and you could have your spirit beaten down. You could have your why extinguished if you're not careful, because there are constant challenges within whatever
Mm-hmm.
social impact you're trying to have. And so I talk about how both faith, the belief that we can achieve, the belief that by doing the right thing, the resources will come to us so we can continue to be the type of organization we want for the community. And then sometimes anger, that I'm tapping into my anger at the conditions in which some people are forced to live, children and adults, that are just unfair, and some systems that make it unfair for young people to be their best selves, and tapping into that when you need to get that extra energy to make sure that you continue to fight on and then you continue to succeed. So that's kind of a high level overview of some of the chapters and the content that we cover.
We're talking with Earl Phalen. He is KC Scholars. He's the Phalen Leadership Academies. He's a noted author. And today we're really focusing on leadership and social entrepreneurship. You mentioned one word in there, that I had a conversation with someone actually at the Kauffman Foundation talking about that I think scares and freaks people out more than anything, sometimes in running a nonprofit, and that's change.
Yes.
Your advice on change?
My advice on change is you never change for change's sake, but if you're not constantly innovating, um, you know, I used to have a belief that all things in life are either developing or they're deteriorating. And if you think you can stand still, you're deteriorating. And so change is a necessary part, again, not just for its own sake, but change is a necessary part to constantly look at, even most recently, right? How can AI support the work that we're doing at KC Scholars or the training programs that we're providing at Great Jobs KC? I don't know the answer, but I know that we should at least be socializing and listening to the experts and seeing if there's some efficiencies or there's some greater impact that we can have through that. So that would just be one example of constantly perfecting your work, but also looking at the external environment and understand that the world is changing and how must we continue to evolve to be relevant and impactful. So I love the word change, but I love the word innovation even more.
And one of your chapters talks about, building that team and pulling a team together.
Yes.
So what are kind of the top advice you have on that? And then I want to go back to change in a minute.
Yes. I think, there's this thing called top hiring or top management. And essentially it's a philosophy that says before you hire for a position, ask what will be different as a result of this new person you're going to hire 1 year from now. And you write it down as a SMART goal. So it's specific, it's measurable, it's tangible, achievable, et cetera, et cetera. And so let's say it's a development person. Okay, a year from now, that person will have helped us raise $1 million extra dollars. We will have 100 new donors, and we will have retained 90% of our existing. And so by getting that level of clarity, when I interview somebody, tell me a time that you've raised $1 million. Right? Tell me what you do to retain existing donors and what has been your success rate. Now, they may not know that, but that also gives me insight to, okay, that's somebody who hasn't had to work with this level of rigor and intentionality. But they should know how much they raise. They should know what their donor retention rate. They should know some of the key things. Again, that's not an obstacle for them being hired per se, but it helps me understand, is this person going to fit into our culture, which is very goal oriented and very team oriented as well. But those are important things to have. So I think that's one. I think the second thing is, I sometimes, Henry Ford had this QQS quotient: quality of work, quantity of work, and spirit with which you do the work. And he said that, he sometimes had the person who was in the earliest, left the latest, was one of the most brilliant engineers that he had ever had, but their spirit, like how they fit with the other team members, was absolutely horrific. And he said, I would fire somebody if they didn't have the Q, or the S, any one of those three, because some people will keep people with bad spirit, even because they do such good work and they work so hard. And I've learned along the way that you have to also kind of assess those competencies of, does this individual, are they going to fit with the climate of the organization, and are they going to be a great teammate to have? So those are some of the lessons that kind of we've learned over time. And then what you see is, in our operating mechanisms, we have daily huddles and weekly tactical meetings and some other stuff that I won't get into, but it's in the book. We then are reporting out on a day-to-day basis. Hey, here's how I'm doing towards my 1 million raised. I'm at 250,000. We're at the first quarter. I'm right on track for where I want to be. The great blessing of that is you never are confused at the end of the year about how you performed on your results. And then we have some other kind of ways in how you performed as a team member. So that clarity, I think, allows people to thrive and has helped my organizations have some pretty phenomenal impact.
All right, let's go back to that word change.
Yes.
So you assemble the team.
Yes.
How do you handle that word? Because from your description, you're constantly changing. How do you do that without freaking people out?
Over communication. and allowing people to process as they process. Some people can hear something, okay, I'm on board. Some people need to hear things 5 times. Some people need to see the research of why you're doing. So a perfect example, KC Scholars, incredible organization, right? Founded by Dr. Beth and Jan and Aaron North and many others. Incredible organization focused on college scholarships as a way of getting to a better economic place, right? Was giving out 250 scholarships a year to 11th graders, and then giving support to make sure they succeeded in their college and then into the careers that they desired here in Kansas City. Jan had the vision of saying, Earl, right now the reality is 50% of the 22,000 high school seniors in Kansas Metro KC, 50% of them are choosing college, but 50% of them are choosing careers right after graduation. Jan said, we have to find a program. We have to develop a program that also honors those who want to go from high school to a career and a training program. And so that was a massive change for the organization, right? Now, we were growing the KC Scholars Scholarship. We gave out 1,200 college scholarships last year for those to go to college. But we also created a brand new program. And there were some people who said, oh, gosh, we don't care about college anymore. No, we actually have quadrupled the size of our scholarship program. We're getting much better in terms of our partnerships with our universities. We have scholar advocates who are helping our young people all along the way and also in getting jobs that allow them to stay here in Kansas City. So we cared about it, but I heard a lot, oh, you guys don't care about that. We changed the name of the organization from KC Scholars to Great Jobs KC because we said whether you get a degree or whether you get a training program credential, the ultimate North Star that Mr. Kaufman had for us when he founded Project Choice was that you get a great job, right? A great job that allows you to take care of yourself and your loved ones. So you also have to be sensitive or not sensitive to the negative feedback of people misunderstanding that honoring what the reality is in the city and in the region is not, that has changed, but it's not disrespectful to the cornerstone, which was scholarships, which continue to grow, but we're also going to honor those who want to get jobs. And the blessing, Ruth, has been over 7,000 people in the last 2 years have signed up for the Great Jobs program. As I said, most recently 1,000 per month. And just today, we had our 1,100th person secure a job that allows them to make more for themselves and their family. And the average graduate's making about 10,000 more than when they started the program, plus full benefits for themselves and their children. So that change was spurred by Jan's vision and took a lot of time for people, particularly who saw us as just a scholarship program, took a lot of time and communication and over communication that this is an and, it is not a either or. So long-winded explanation, but it's a major change that we went through at Great Jobs KC Scholars.
And Jan, who you're referring to, is Jan Kramer,
yes,
who is a past CEO of the Kaufman Foundation. Just for folks who may not be familiar with her, that was a couple executive or CEOs ago. So we'll just bring everybody up to speed.
Yes.
I want to get back to where we started in my introduction, talking about leadership. So we have a few minutes left. What makes a good leader and how do you get there?
Yeah, I think a good leader is has vision, has respect for the fact that it takes time to go from vision to impact. It really does. And that different team members will come along. So somebody who's a really good communicator and comfortable communicating in many different styles and modalities and bring the entire team along and understand. Again, some will get it right away. Some won't see the vision for a month or maybe even sometimes a year. I think a good leader, they're not fearless. People think that you're fearless, but I think it's courageous because courage is acting in the face of fear. So even though you have fear, you're still going to do it because you know it's right for the community and for the adults and children that you serve. And so I think a strong leader has courage. And then a strong leader, my first chapter is Know Your Why, which is, why are you doing this work? And when you get knocked down or you have setbacks or things don't go your way, that's hard. And knowing your why keeps you grounded and allows you to come back yeah, this was hard, but Harriet Tubman went through worse. Yeah, this is hard, but Martin Luther King experienced worse, right? And so stay in there, keep fighting the good fight, and keep being entrepreneurial, keep being strategic. And I also think a good leader surrounds themselves with incredible team members. I mean, we have Tammy Edwards, who's our board chair now. I have a senior leadership team that's second to none and I'm not disparaging anybody else. I'm sure other people have great teams too, but surrounding yourself with really strong governing board and a really strong senior leadership team allows the mission to come to life. So those are some of the characteristics I think of a good leader.
What advice would you give then for somebody who's listening to our conversation and says, man, I want to up my game as a leader? Where do you look? How can it help, or who can help you?
I think a few things. I think one is make sure you have mentors and coaches, whoever they are. My dad and my brother and my mom were mentors and coaches. They weren't formally, but I went to them for advice, and I listened to kind of their piece and tried not to be defensive when they coached me in doing something a little bit different. I think finding peers. I've been blessed to reach out to a lot of other nonprofit leaders, and we're all willing to make the time to help you get better. And again, it's just advice, and so you'll use it or you won't. But I think that's another piece. I think studying other organizations that are better than you and better than yours is a critical thing. It may be humbling, but it's so powerful to look at another organization that's doing it better than you are and taking the time to talk with that leader to please give me guidance and help me along the way. And then obviously, I have a book From Vision to Impact that has some nuggets in there as well. But there's tons of great books by Stephen Covey. There's tons of great books by, James Collins and many others. I mean, there are hundreds of great books that will help you as a social entrepreneur. And then you have groups like Kauffman with their 1 Million Cups, where they try to bring together communities of social entrepreneurs so you can understand, like I did in the early days with Echoing Green Foundation. They brought us together every month, so you didn't feel quite as isolated. And then you also had somebody where you actually had their solution and they had your solution, and you could work together to elevate your organizations and your impact. So those are some of the things that I'd recommend. There's a big community out there, and there are a lot of people who are willing to help, and there are a lot of resources, and particularly with videos now, you can hear from almost any great leader of any sector in the world, and take time to do that, and take one nugget and try to implement it the next month, and then take another nugget, and all of a sudden you'll start to see the momentum.
All right, let's tell everybody where they can get your book.
Sure. From Vision to Impact is available on Amazon. So Amazon.com is probably the easiest place to get it. And again, even if you decide not to purchase the book, if you think I could be helpful to you on your journey, just reach out to me at greatjobskc.org, and we'll find a time to chat.
I was going to, you just read my mind, because I was going to say, people want to hook up with you and see if they can have a conversation to move the game forward. Leadership, social entrepreneurship, it's sometimes that outside voice or the one that's on your shoulder really helps to motivate you. So we thank you so much for your time, your talent, your treasure, your motivation. It's all great. Earl, thank you for spending time with us.
My pleasure. Blessing to be in service. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for joining us on KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice, and we're produced by a nonprofit called Charitable Communications. This KC Cares segment was brought to you by the Ewing, Marion Kauffman Foundation, www.kauffman.org. If you'd like to be a guest on KC Cares or to support what we're doing in the community, visit our website. We're at kccaresonline.org, and spread the love. You'll find us on Facebook and Twitter at KC Cares Radio, and on Instagram at KC Cares Online. And don't forget, you can catch us Saturday mornings on ESPN 1510 AM and 94.5 FM. That's at 8 a.m. Thank you for joining us on KC Cares.